Okay. Right. Good afternoon, everybody. If everybody's ready, we'll start off. This is Standards Committee General Meeting. Right, to receive apologies and absences.
Yeah, so we've received apologies from Councillor Lucy Shires and Councillor Gary Bull.
Thank you. Do we have any public questions?
None received.
Right, we have the minutes to approve from this meeting on the 11th of October 2022, and the two present members who were present then are myself and Nigel. So Nigel, are you happy to approve the minutes, or do you wish for a few minutes to read them? Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to sign this. Now we have the minutes for the two hearings that were held in June. One was held on the 23rd and the other on the 30th of June. I would just like to make clear that I reclused myself from the 23rd of June, owing to the fact that I am well acquainted with the subject member, and not the complainant as is in the minutes.
No problem, I'll update those.
And if everybody, where found you? Okay. Everybody content with those minutes? Is that general? A nod? Sorry, Angie?
It's only one that involved me. and I'm quite happy with that.
Lovely, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'll sign both those. Do we have any actions arising from those minutes? We have, since the June, we did interview and appoint two independent people. That's correct.
Yes,
And
that's
action from those, from the
from that while back.
that
Yes, yes.
meeting, yeah, thank you. Items of urgent business,
None received.
thank you. Declarations of interest. No declarations of interest declared. So we move to excerpts on the monitoring officer's annual report. And I turn to the monitoring officer.
Thank you. Every year I write a monitoring officer report that goes to the GRAC committee. But as part of that monitoring officer report, there's some information in regards to code of conduct matters. So I have extracted the appendix, and you can read the full report from the GRAC meeting of September this year. And in that report, there's the Appendix F, which details some information about the standards complaints that I dealt with. Basically, and by way of summary, between April 2022 and March 23, there was a total of 20 code of conduct complaints. 17 of those complaints related to parish and town councils and 3 related to the district council. It's a similar number to the previous year where there were 23 code of conduct complaints. And just by way of a bit of background, on receipt of a complaint about member conduct, I conduct an initial assessment to determine whether the matter warrants any further action, such as a formal investigation. And during that process, I liaise with now one of the 2 independent persons. In regards to the table you have, the most common reason for complaints continues to be, as it has been for the last few years, alleged disrespectful behaviour. And the majority of the complaints that I dealt with resulted in no further action. Sometimes even when there has been no further action, there has been some informal recommendation or guidance to improve governance processes. It's mentioned briefly in the 2022-2023 monitoring officer report that there were a couple of standards hearings, although they occurred after that period. Part of the reason being to avoid the pre-election period. So that's the information in regards to the code of conduct matters. I also provided the GRAC committee with a bit of information in regards to that the district council holds the register of interests for not only the district council members, but for town and parish councils within the district. And we've moved to electronic recording of member interests. And we also keep a register of gifts and hospitality received, which members are required, if it reaches a certain amount, to notify me of. So that's a brief summary of the relevant parts of my monitoring officer report that are relevant to this committee, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. First question, Nigel, Councillor Dixon, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question think I've got more than one question actually, but the first
Well,
question
well,
really
kick off.
relates to the note at the bottom of the table on page 4. And that particular note refers to the hearing that we dealt with in June of this year. I'm not sure, I don't understand why that's listed as a note and not in the table as the separate year, because it was part of 21-22. But the information that's contained there is not the same as the information when you track the other complaints. For example, it doesn't say when the complaint started. And in this particular case, it started 18 months, I believe, before the hearing, which is one of the longest, I think, cases that I'm aware of that we've had outstanding. So I'm just a little puzzled as to why that's a note and not included in the table so that we can follow that in exactly the same way as the others.
I believe that's because the complaint was from the previous financial year, so from the year 21-22. There were reasons as to why it took so very long. Some of the information, I think, was heard at the hearing itself, such as offering that the matter could potentially be dealt with by way of apology. And then we had some incidences of staff members who commenced the investigation. It happened twice, actually, left the authority, and so it had to recommence. So that's why it wasn't in this table, but so as to make members aware and to let them know that there was this additional matter, I decided to put it as a note at the end of that table.
Thank you for that. I'm not sure that it deals with the point that the substantial point I raised, which was that information isn't directly comparable with tracking the other cases because it's got no start date. So it's not apparent to the reader how long that's been outstanding. And I couldn't see why that wasn't put in a table in a tabulated form in exactly the same way as the others.
It's because it would have been in the table for the previous year, and because it was in the table for the previous year, but it hadn't resolved. That's why the footnote, if you like, was put there to make sure that members had all of that information, even though it wasn't in the table. And of course, I'm quite happy and was quite happy at the GRAC meeting to answer any questions as to like when that complaint started.
Yeah, I get your drift. My issue really is consistency and transparency of reporting.
Is there a way we could meet the concerns of Councillor Dixon in future by tabulating such would that be possible without recourse to the previous tabulation, as it were?
Well, one of the things I could add, I suppose, if such a thing were to happen again, would be to refer to the previous table.
Would that satisfy you?
Well, it does seem to me that, as I said, for the casual reader of that, they would have no idea that that's been running for 18 months. It's obvious that it obviously relates to the previous year, so it's got some time scale to it, but it's just it hasn't been treated and presented in a consistent manner.
Okay, so in future you would like to see that in a tabulated form, just brought forward from the previous year.
Yes.
If such a situation, because I think it was a very unusual situation, because two investigators left the authority, but should something similar happen again, I'll try to make it more apparent as to when the complaint was originally made, whether that's either on the table or on the note on the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. My second point, I suppose, really, kind of flowing from that, is that, and I wasn't sure how you were going to pick this up, Mr. Chairman, but the minutes of the October meeting
Mm.
have an outstanding action on them. And that action was on the monitoring officer to explore, as it says on, I suppose it must be page 4, is it? The proposal was made to be given a consideration be given to investigating early intervention methods to resolve issues prior to the point of complaint with NALC. Invited to the next meeting to provide input, and Councillor Brown seconded that proposal. So you've got the resolution there. And I'm aware that we had a meeting in November. I'm not absolutely sure. That meeting may well not have been quorate,
That meeting was not quorate.
and as such, it hasn't been recorded in the usual way. But the essence of my issue really is that a lady from NALC came along to that meeting at the invitation of the monitoring officer in this committee, and a discussion was had, an exploratory. I don't know whether you were chair of the meeting, but you were certainly chair of the committee at that time.
I was chair of the committee. I was certainly here. We weren't quorate, so it was informal. It was an informal discussion with the lady from, as you say, the officer from NALC.
Yes. So my concern really is that that particular action stands to fall down between the cracks if we're not careful.
Yeah, I absolutely understand.
Sorry, whereabouts on the minutes is this?
It's page 4.
It's just halfway down, almost exactly halfway
Yeah.
down. And then the resolution that consideration be given to investigating early intervention methods to resolve issues prior to the point of complaint, with NALC invited to the next meeting to provide input.
I do believe, this is my recollection, that indeed the lady from NALC did attend and explain to the members of the committee here what sorts of things she was doing to provide this support and intervention, if you like, in regards to sorting out some issues, especially at particular parish and town councils that had specific issues. One of the things that, whilst we can do this and whilst the lady from NALC can do that, it's an individual's right to make a code of conduct complaint. So there's a limit, in fact, as to how far you can do, because you don't want to prevent people's rights to be able to do that.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I think the focus of this particular resolution was to explore those options. So although we've got the oral report from the monitoring officer, we don't have a written report to consider, because I wouldn't have thought that was the end of the matter. I think that there are some other options that we need to explore. And I personally feel that that's what we need to do. I probably feel stronger now than I did a year ago. And the reasons for that is that I have sat through 2 hearings since then. And I have to say the experience was not a good one. From the point of view of appreciating that the process was long-winded and very resource intensive, extremely resource intensive. And it was my impression that not many people involved were satisfied with the outcomes. Now, that may be a perception issue, so I don't rely too much on that. What I rely on is timescale and resources, and that was effectively what my concern was back a year ago, because we have to have something which is fit for purpose, and our discussions at that time reflected the wider issues around recruiting for parish council councillors and the kind of concerns that they have when disagreements arise, because they will always arise. And we've only got to look at any moment in time across the county and you'll find various town and parish councils in some kind of conflict and people resigning and all manner of things. It did certainly, to me, on both of those occasions, on both of those hearings, it did certainly strike me, and particularly I think one of them, and that might well have been the first one that we sat on, the one that you didn't attend, that there was a very good opportunity of reaching some kind of resolution before that kind of reached that point, and thereby saving us and others all the resources and reaching outcomes in a prompter timescale and stopping people from harboring those and they generally deepen with time. They don't heal with time. They actually get more and more polarized. And so there were some wider objectives that we needed to consider, and whether or not we can do better than this. But that's the root of my concern, Mr. Chairman. You probably heard it all before a year ago.
Yeah, Councillor MacDonald. Oh, sorry, if the monitoring officer would like. Oh, wait for Councillor.
I'm going to agree. I 100% felt the same, especially with the first one. The outcome, I don't feel happy with the outcome, and there was so much money and time wasted for a very poor outcome, I felt.
Yeah,
I think I can understand the frustration and the discontent with outcomes. And I have a few observations to make following your comments in particular. There is a standards regime. As a district council, we have no choice but to deal with complaints made under the Code of Conduct in regard to district and parish councils. And we have to act within the parameters of that scheme, which in some regards is considered by some as not very satisfactory, because any sanction in regard to a parish or a town council is a recommendation from this council, and there are only limited sanctions that can be recommended. And then, of course, it has to be picked up by that particular town and parish council and a resolution made themselves. In regards to our stage, when we deal with it here at the district council, we only investigate matters that are worthy of such investigation. And as you will have heard, when I gave an outline of the previous year's Code of Conduct matters, the majority of matters are no further action. If we were to investigate everything, it would cost the district council far more than it already does. In regards to the first complaint that you're talking about, the individual was invited to have the matter resolved by way of apology. I believe that was on more than one occasion that he had the possibility to apologise, but where that opportunity is refused, then the district council is in a position, well, what do? Do you just say, oh no, that's going to cost far too much money to proceed to investigation and then hearing? Well, we can't really do that, because we have an obligation to deal with Code of Conduct complaints and to proceed to such an investigation and hearing where we consider necessary, and where the opportunity to apologise or to deal with it in some other informal way isn't taken up, then we're in that difficult position.
yeah. I can't comment on because I am too close to the subject matter. So I mean, I wish to comment, but I won't. Nigel.
Yes, I accept all of that, and I think we recognised that a year ago. We were constrained by the process. We have to comply with the process. We have to offer people those options. But I have to say, in respect of the first one, there was almost a light bulb moment in that hearing when there was a conversation, and I'm not going to say who the conversation was between, but there was a conversation which I think dawned and enabled a new view to be taken and a recognition that things could have gone the other way. So what do I mean by that? Well, as the monitoring officer said, we have got a system that we have to comply with. And I think offering somebody the option of writing a letter of apology is one thing. But it's a kind of almost a passive thing. You're giving that opportunity. And I think that we have to be, we could be a bit more, I think, interventionist than that, and perhaps more active in prompting the kind of light bulb moment at perhaps an earlier point in the process. And so it is about exploring how that might be done, and no more really.
Can I just ask, do you think we could have achieved that light bulb moment with the independent person?
Yes.
Taking a more, I mean, the independent person on this case, this was his first case, so it relatively inexperienced at this. But
Can I just say,
yeah,
I think we need to be very careful in regards to going back and reconsidering a case and talking about a light bulb moment of a hearing that has already happened when we've considered the matter and the members who are here made a decision to recommend such and such a way forward to a particular parish council. In regards to speaking generally about interventions, I need to keep myself relatively neutral so that I'm able to be a neutral person during the process of consideration of a code of conduct matter, rather than getting involved in organising something other than an informal resolution. I don't know what kind of other sorts of intervention, and if we're speaking generally about earlier intervention, what sorts of earlier intervention the committee as a whole considers. But I think that the monitoring officer and the district council are in we only have limited authority over parish and town councils, and that's in regard to dealing with member conduct. We can't tell town and parish councils how they should be like running their meetings as such, or what they're doing wrong, if they're doing anything wrong.
no. Councillor Dixon again.
Yes, if I might respond to that, I think we need to be very clear. This isn't about reopening a case that's already been heard. That is not the case at all. I think that we all recognise that that's done and dusted, but we need to learn things.
Yeah.
And so this is about identifying things that we have experienced, and if they occur again, perhaps we can do them in a different way that might have a better outcome with a less resource intensive process. Coming to what kind of intervention that might be, I think we said a year ago, we had an open mind about that. And we needed to take advice on what kind of thing that might look like. But what concerns me, I suppose, most is that we've made no progress since November of last year on this, and it has lain dormant. And but for it being raised today in this discussion, it might well have been consigned to the shelf gathering dust, and we can't allow that to happen. I think that there is some what I would call proactive thinking that we need. We need to think outside the box sometimes, and I take all the points that the monitoring officer rightly says about needing to be independent and the process needs to be complied with. But we are talking about the informal stage and not triggering that really important point when you start to commit considerable resource to it. So I don't have that answer. I raise the question and I raise the concern because I think we as guardians of the public purse need to be mindful of that. And we, as I said, we need to be mindful of the kind of problems that parish councils wrestle with from time to time in terms of maintaining their integrity, maintaining the ability to transact business as they're required to, and to satisfy people's divergence of views and behaviours. And I think that there is more that we can do. It really did feel to me like a huge sledgehammer to crack a nut. That's how it kind of felt to me. But that was just the impression of one hearing. There are many others. And I have I don't believe that whatever we come up with would stop all of them, because why should it? Because people will still have that opportunity of saying, no, I don't want to engage in this particular facility. I want this fully investigated. I want my 5 minutes or whatever it is, 10 minutes in court. Yep.
Yeah.
I think there are some perceived inadequacies with the system, that it doesn't provide for some people who have experienced conduct from members. It doesn't deliver on their expectations of what the eventual outcome will be. But that isn't an issue that the district council can deal with. That's the legislation. That's all that we're able to do under the legislation. I'm also concerned in regards to resource issues at this council. My role in particular in regards to town and parish councils focuses on member conduct, and they are their own independent legal entities. And if I were to get involved with all of the various disputes and how things should be conducted and issues that they may have before someone puts in a code of conduct complaint, that could potentially be a full-time role in itself. And we need to be really mindful in regards to the time spent on things that maybe we don't have a legal obligation to do.
I would just like to say that actually on the hearing that I attended, I felt that did need to be aired fully in a public forum. The second hearing, that's all I can say. But so I mean, I'm sure Democratic Services head off a lot of this at the pass, and we could, talking to other council members of other councils, we actually get away quite lightly. This has been under discussion at the Broads Authority. They are they have not had a standards committee before, and now they are having to have a standards committee, but it doesn't have our options of looking after town and village and parish councils, which is where the majority of the issues arise.
Yeah, I would just note that in Democratic Services, obviously we're not so much a part of the cog of the standards regime that the monitoring officer is, and we do try to offer advice to parish councils and help them resolve issues when we can. Obviously that's not always the case, and sometimes the only option is to refer them to the standards process, but we certainly do offer advice where we can.
I think I'd also add the Democratic Services also administer the town and parish forum, where clerks from town and parish councils and chairs and some other members attend. I can't remember how frequently that's run.
I think it's at least quarterly, perhaps not quite monthly, but
Mm.
yeah.
So there is this additional support to town and parish councils in that way. And the member from NALC often attends as well.
Councillor Dixon.
Mr. Chairman, I think I probably got to the point where I'd like to make a proposal. And it's a two-part proposal, really. One is that we have a report of that account in November, which we've not seen. And the second is that we continue to look at options that might be capable of meeting the expectations that we set out in October last year. And I don't see the situation changed in this last 12 months. So my proposal is a two-part one, that we see the outcome of those discussions, that the narrative report of that, and that we continue to think laterally and explore other options. And it's not for me to say what they are. I don't have that level of knowledge. I don't have that familiarity, but I do believe we have a duty to explore this to a conclusion where either we say, here is something that we can put in, and that may well cause some complaints not to reach that resource intensive stage. Or we, there will be some that come through, but I think we have to do our best to do better rather than we are at the moment. So that's my proposal.
Just adding in there that to have a full standards hearing, I think it averages out that we have one every 2 years. It was very unusual that we had two in a short period of time. And in regards to the first part of your proposal, you'd like a report of the account in November. I just want to understand exactly what you mean by that.
What a report on what the lady from NALC actually said.
We've got no record of that. Because the minutes arise out before a meeting.
Yeah.
There are notes that we can have in for meetings.
Sorry, just remind you to turn your microphone on.
Yes, my request really is that we have a report of what was discussed and how those options were explored and what the outcomes were. And I know you've given us an oral report on that, but the meeting was far longer than that, and I'm not sure what record there might be within Democratic Services, but I think it would be helpful if we had an outcome, a written outcome of that meeting. It was a substantive meeting, although it wasn't a quorum meeting. There is no record in writing of that, so I think that we need to make that complete. As I said, the second part of that is an open question.
So if we could actually see if there was a recording, I'm trying to remember.
I don't.
Was you or
I was there. If there was a recording, it would have expired now and self-deleted. But I think probably the best we can do is for the officers that were in attendance is to have a discussion and see if we can kind of work out or remember what the outcomes were, the best outcomes were, alongside, if your proposal is supported, Councillor Dixon, alongside a suggestion of any other options that might be possible for consideration to help this process.
No. I believe that even though it was in quorum, because the lady from NALC had travelled all the way to come and see us in particular, it was decided to proceed in any event. I suppose another option would be to invite her again.
I'd like to invite NALC again. Councillor MacDonald would propose that. Would you second that?
I'm happy to propose it. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure which comes first, but I'm happy to second or propose. I mean, my proposal was open to that particular way of conducting it. I'm not wedded to one way or the other, but I think that the individual may well have had a year to reflect as well. May have
but-
further thoughts.
And further thoughts, I'm not quite sure she's still with now, but I mean, she is, all right, excellent. So, yeah, and I would actually like to add on that every councillor in North Norfolk District Council have parish or town councils which they report to. And that what the lady from Nulk says is important for all councillors. And I would like to extend an invitation to all district councillors to attend, because it is of interest to us all. Especially, I mean, some have more difficult parish councils than others. And certainly, I think a discussion with NUC for them as well as us could be good. But I'm open to discussion on that. But it's just that I feel that it was disappointing last time, to say the least, that there was only yourself, myself, and John Rest that was there. Thank you. So if that's a proposal,
Could I suggest, I think the proposals are trying to effectively achieve the same thing. If Councillor Dixon was happy to amend his proposal to include the suggestion to re-invite the NALC officer to attend. So essentially we would have Councillor Dixon's proposal suggesting that we invite the NALC officer to discuss options to help resolve complaints prior to the reaching the threshold of a formal hearing, and that a report is prepared to review options alongside that. And I think Councillor McDonald has said he's happy to second that proposal.
okay, all those in favour? Unanimous. Right. Okay, so we move on to determination notice of request for dispensation.
Thank you. The Standards Committee is responsible for the consideration and granting of dispensations. I think the committee appreciated that sometimes it needs to happen sooner rather than waiting for the Standards Committee to convene. And so there was a process by which I was given delegated authority to sign off a determination notice after liaising with members. And for completeness and transparency, this dispensation notice, which was granted to Councillor Holliday, to allow her to debate and vote on decisions relating to second homes and holiday homes in the district, was granted from the 18th of May this year until the 17th of May 27. So a copy of that is attached, and that's also available to see on our website.
Okay, thank you. Everybody content with that? That's it. And Councillor Finch Tillett seconding. All those in favour? And that is our business concluded. And when is the next meeting?
There isn't any other
Oh.
business item to include an update. I mean, recent-
My thing came to an end. All right, yes, so. Okay, sorry for that. Any other business?
So this is to include an update on recent standards complaints. I'm pleased to say that we don't have any hearings in the process. We do have 3 current code of conduct matters which are at the assessment stage, and we are liaising with the independent persons as necessary.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on that? Exclusion of the press and public, nothing secret squirrel? No, okay. And that is it. We conclude our business, and I suspect we'll be meeting again sometime with the, now you'll organise a,
Yeah, so the next scheduled meeting is April, but if you don't want to wait that long, I'm sure that arrangements can be made for an additional meeting prior to that point. Although I note that I won't be administering
I
that.
know, and as you will well know, my heart is breaking. So, and we wish you the best. Can I just say, I think I speak for us all, that Standards Committee wish you the very, very best in your, for your future. And as I say, I am envious of your office block that you are moving to. Thank you very much. And that's concluded.